Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session, Empowering Youth, with Anne-Marie McDougall. I'm the president of LeaderBoom, and we're focused to empower individuals, teams, and organizations to actualize their potential. And the purpose of this session is to focus on how do we empower youth, and particularly youth who are experiencing unusual or different challenges in areas of learning. And today we're very privileged to have Jay Mandarino join us in this discussion. Jay Mandarino, welcome. He's connected through Skype, and Jay has an incredible story, personal story to share about how he overcame some learning challenges as a youth to empower himself to actualize his potential. Jay Mandarino is the president and CEO of CJ Graphics Group of Companies. He has, over the past 25 years, raised more than $50 million through auctioneering to benefit charities worldwide. He is a professional auctioneer through his non-for-profit corporation, JBM Auction Services, but in his day job, he is president and CEO of 30 companies and growing, including one of the world's largest non-for-profit indoor skateboard parks in schools. So we look forward to hearing more about that skateboard park from Jay. But in addition to all of his companies and his auctioneering and the charities that are benefiting from his participation, he has received more than 7,500 awards for his companies and his charitable work. So we look forward to hearing more about that. Welcome, Jay, to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Marie. I love what you say, challenges, because I hate the word disability.
I do too. I absolutely do. I don't see it as a disability. I see it as an ability, actually. An incredible ability. So thank you so much for joining us. It's a privilege. And I just wanted to maybe start by, if you could share your personal story, Jay, on your youth experience of having a different kind of learning ability and how you were supported to learn more about that and to empower yourself to actualize your potential. So if you could start with your youth story, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. I'll try to do the short version. So basically, at 8 years old, I attempted suicide. I had no self-esteem. I had no friends. I was going through huge depression. I was ridiculed. I was made fun of. I got in trouble. I was always in the principal's office. My parents had to pick me up from school and getting in fights, and just so many different challenges around that. And really, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was when I had to go to the front of the classroom and was asked to read a couple lines that I couldn't read, and everybody laughed at me. So it was really tough, and basically I was institutionalized, went from hospital to hospital. My parents were amazing, thank God, never gave up, and we found out eventually I had dyslexia and ADHD. And then they, and this is just up before that point, they told my parents that I would never amount to anything, I would never finish high school, forget university, and really should go on a halfway home for criminals. So luckily they didn't listen. So they sold their house, and I went to a private school in the States that specialized in dyslexia and ADHD. And basically it was the piece that turned my life around, because there was about 4 to 5 students per classroom. So you really had a great chance of learning. And it was the first time I felt normal, whatever normal was, because everybody was there with the same challenge. So it was pretty cool. My whole life changed for the positive. Then I got my first best friend, and he taught me to skateboard, and you mentioned skateboarding, so we'll do the tie-in now for that. The great thing about skateboarding was, because it's not a team sport, it's an individual sport, you're only competing against yourself, so it's great. So you can get self-esteem, you can get self-confidence almost within days of learning a couple tricks, which was cool. So I really excelled at that. I practiced like 8-9 hours every day, and became so good I became third in Canada at the time. And I was the first person in the world to jump over a Ferrari on my skateboard, which is pretty cool. And the kids sort of go, "Hey, we can't find that on YouTube." And I go, "Well, we didn't have YouTube back then." So I'm 56 now, and that was in 1976. And I was 15 at the time, and I still skateboard, and skateboarding has been sort of a savior for me to turn my life around. And as you said earlier, I have 31 different companies and very successful, and give back to the community all the time.
It's amazing, Jay. It's a real privilege to speak with you about this, and I know it will be inspiring to so many who are listening to us. And so, when we get back to your youth and that point in time where your parents were able to look to outside of the box for some creative solutions to help support you, which is incredible. Um, is it that they were able? Is it the Gow Independent School in Buffalo, New
Gauss.
York? Yeah,
Yeah.
I took a look at their site, and can you help us to identify maybe one or two things that they shared with you as a group of students who had been identified as having dyslexia, was it, or ADHD? What did they share as the special gift from having that capability? Do you remember one or two things that they may have shared as a group of students?
So, I mean, they had a system there which was built based on the Orton Gillingham, but they modified it themselves and they added phonetics. And we had cards. So, for example, there'd be a card that would have OUGH on one side, and on the back there'd be a sentence, though the tough cough and hiccup, O F up, ow, oo. So you'd learn what sounds and what they meant, because the English language is not a logical language. You have one duck, two ducks, one car, two cars, one goose, two geese. No, you should have two gooses. Like, it's just not logical. And so they sort of you relearned how to use and pronounce things, because there's no way of doing it logically. And a lot of times there's a lot of people who generally have a lot of these challenges tend to be a higher intelligence.
Right.
And what's happening is they're just processing information so fast that they're sort of too far ahead to sort of slow down and pick up some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And as I tell everybody, you have 50 students in a class. I don't care if they have a learning challenge or not. 50 kids can't learn at the same pace. It's a real
Absolutely.
challenge. And luckily, when I got to university, at York University, I became part of a pilot program where I actually got extra time in my exams, and I was allowed to have some of the questions orally, because sometimes I would read the question and not understand the question, so I would answer it wrong because I didn't read it properly.
That's fantastic. There's so many that I've worked with over the years through banking and through community volunteerism, and also in family, who've had a wide variety of learning disabilities. And I think just identifying what that unique skill is and bringing those skills together can create some pretty powerful outcomes. I love the idea that you got connected to your skateboard earlier on, and that really helped you to identify your ability to really excel in that sport, and how you've brought that to life for so many other kids. Can you talk a little bit about your skateboard park, Jay, in terms of how you're leveraging that space to help so many kids? Who are the kids that come to your park, and how are they benefiting from it?
Well, that's a lot of questions.
I know.
You ask it so well. So it's a great question. We'll start at the beginning. Why did I start the place? Because we lose money every day. But basically, it's my way of giving back and trying to prevent any kids going through what I went through. And, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So, our sort of tagline is we serve all kids in the community, including those with special needs, such as Asperger's, autism, deaf. We actually work with kids with cancer. So you name it. We had a child just recently that's a quad paraplegic. We've had every kind of thing you can think of, and it's amazing working with these kids. It's probably the most rewarding part of my job. I'm there generally every Saturday and teach on Saturdays, and we are saving lives. We're changing the paradigm, and it's pretty cool. We get people from all over coming, and and we get our at youth risk to be involved and help volunteer, so they get empowered and they see the difference they're making in another individual's life, which is just so rewarding to watch these kids. It's funny. I just gave a talk the other day, 500 people from the Justice Association from across Canada, and I had a couple of volunteers there, and one of the volunteers I had, who's been with me for 13 years now, and she's just turned, I think, 20 now. It's like hearing her talk, I was so proud, that I was able to help influence part of her life to help others, and we just had some great stories and great feedback.
Yeah, that's awesome how inspiring you have been for Canada, absolutely. And, in terms of Canada and some of the research that we've looked at through CIBC, World Economics, and others, We're seeing that there's a challenge for youth, in particularly even in the city of Toronto. I think the unemployment rate ranges from 15 to 20% at times, and certainly we have a lot of resources here that youth can rely on. But I understand there's also a widening gap between what the businesses require in terms of skill set and what skill set is being trained coming out of higher institutions and so on. So that's definitely a concern. What is your view on that, Jay? What are you seeing? 30 companies, highly successful leader, highly successful person in life. What has been your observation around that?
So there's so many. The world has gone crazy. I don't know any other way of saying it. I mean, the world we live in now is absolutely insane from when we were kids.
Yeah.
Generally, there was one mother and one father, and one of them was working and one of them wasn't working. And now you have, in some cases, two, three sets of parents, different genders, and working harder now than we've worked ever before. And you have to come home to a child who may be a slower learner or have a challenge. It's hard to be bubbly and sympathetic and try to work with that kid. So parents are frustrated, and the kids pick up on that. And kids never want to displease their parent. They really don't, even though it may seem like it at times, but they really don't. So they feel they're letting them down. And the suicide rate now in schools is astronomical.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I worked with a couple LGBT groups, and that suicide rate is just, it's very, very sad. So we have some serious problems out there. We have to change the system. You touched on something which is really interesting, and I'm going to give you a great example. The Toronto District School Board here in Toronto started, they have a couple alternative schools. One of them, believe it or not, is called the Oasis Skateboard Factory. And students learn how to use their creativity. Generally, there's a lot of them are artists, and they design skateboards, and they're using, they're doing art through a skateboard. And we actually let them come to we work with them and let them come to our skate park for free, and they skateboard, and we talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. And because they're learning differently, they're excelling at that, and they're becoming productive people in society and contributing and doing something they have a passion for, and it's great. So, we need more programs like that and try to think outside of the box. And, in the printing industry, we have so many different types of jobs that are perfect for people that, have creativity. And it's not a job like people used to perceive it as being a dirty job. You're getting ink on your fingers. With automation and computers now, it's so much more than that, and it's very rewarding because you're completing something, you're making something. And I think a lot of people need to have a sense of completion and feel like they're part of something. It's not just about money anymore.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing your feedback on that. Certainly the education system has been helped Canada itself has some of the most highly educated students in the world. And, I've been to many universities myself, maybe 10 or so. And, but I think some of my deepest learning experiences have been experiential. And certainly that new academic concept that you've just referred to sounds very, very interesting. Online, more a cooperative learning framework, I guess, where the students are learning how to through doing, which is really great, very interesting.
As you know, there's a lot of us that are visual learners, and we learn visually from not necessarily from reading for something, right? And it's a big challenge out there. I mean, I speak at a different high school every couple of weeks, and as I tell people, there's lots of great teachers, but unfortunately, there's lots of bad teachers. And I was lucky that I had a few great teachers that made an impact, because these become our role models, right? I mean, we look up to them, right?
Yeah.
But, I feel sorry for teachers because, it's a hard job, and you have so many students now. It's getting crazy.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for teachers. I have two sisters who are teachers in my family, actually. I have great respect for them and teachers across the country, and I think they're also looking for, additional support in terms of wanting to help. How can they actualize the potential of the youth that are in front of them? So it's a question that seems to be systemic, and I'm glad that we're having discussion around it. And I can imagine, and I've had the privilege of working with your team on a very, very small project, and they were fantastic, highly engaged, highly just brilliant. Their teamwork was incredible, and I can imagine there'll be thousands, or are thousands, of youth that want to work in your environment. Jay, What do you look for, like in your team, in terms of soft skills to help manage the accelerated change and pressure that you're witnessing in today's business environment?
I'm just going to back up 1 second and sort of lead into that. So I just, because you brought something which is interesting. I remember when I went to university, I was taking this economics course, and I would constantly get into, when you're in a classroom with 5 or 6 people, you become not shy. So I'd be sitting in, a lecture room at York University with 500 students, and the professor would be talking and be questions, and most people wouldn't ask them. I did. And I was saying, this doesn't make sense, because I have my own business now, because I started in grade 13 when I came back to Toronto. And I said, if I sell more, I make more, but you're saying no. And we would get into these arguments. And finally, he left a note for me, and we had to talk after class. And he says, this class might not be the right class for you. I said, well, what do you mean? It's economics. He says, yeah, but this program is geared towards people who want to work in big companies. And I said, well, what, big companies don't want to make money? It's just like, so the system is sort of very odd, and we do have to change things around it and be more, the amount of homework kids have now, to me, I'm sorry, it's just insane. The kids still need to play. They need to have fun. We know the brain develops between 0 and 16 from physical fitness. They need to feel part of something. And I think we need to have more things like that. Now, getting back to specific, attributes, interesting about skateboarding is there's probably over 100 different attributes from it you can get. Besides the physical fitness and balance, dexterity, you're learning when you try something to fail 1,000 times before you get that. So you build up resilience and this attitude to never give up. And skateboarders never give up. It's incredible attitudes there. And also very creative, the way they link their tricks together. And they're using physics and mathematics. And it's amazing to watch some of these kids, young kids. So, I mean, all those skills are certainly coming in any job. And they also develop a great sort of street sense, The other thing that's interesting in the community of skateboarding is that everyone is willing to help everybody. And I have not seen that in another sport to this day. So if you're at a skateboard park, whether you're a 4-year-old little kid, you're an 18-year-old teenager, or you're a 26-year-old, or you're like me, 56, almost ancient, everybody helps everybody and is willing to help everybody, which is just amazing. And people will just lend you the board if you want to borrow it, which you just don't see that in the other sport.
Yeah, my son actually, he's 32 now, but when he was 8, he started skateboarding, and that's long before the days of internet and so on, and it was a real community thing. They'd meet together and learn how to skate, and he still skates today. So, yeah,
you had a son when you were 10?
Pardon me?
Well, you said 32-year-old son, so you're 42, so your son was 10?
Yeah, that's right. That was long. Well, thank goodness for hair color, right? This is the second interview that I'm saying this in, but thanks, Jay. But no, I think certainly the experience of having a child is amazing and empowering, and yeah, love them dearly, that's for sure. But anything that we can do to empower youth, of course, is not only helpful to the individual and to their families, but to the communities and to the country. So we have some really amazing youth in this country, and I know globally too, but any way that we can help support them and transfer that learning from our own experiences is going to be very key, I think, to our futures. And I wanted to get back to the topic of your team, because your team, you've got 30 countries, you've taken on employees or labor from each of those companies as you merged them into your environment, and you've got like the best of the best working for you, and they seem to be very loyal, and they're highly talented. Can you talk to a little bit about your leadership style, Jay? I know that you think outside of the box, you're highly intuitive, and likely that's one of your gifts. You're a highly creative, genius creative person. From my perspective, what would you say your leadership skills are, your leadership values, and so on?
So luckily I had a few jobs over the years where I worked with some different, unique individuals and learned lots of things from them. Initially I was a terrible boss and could never really grow. And now we have, I think it's now 31 companies, 240 people. We're in a 240,000 square foot facility, and it's unbelievable. We're the biggest facility in the country now, privately owned, which is awesome. And honestly, my team is amazing. I have the best team in the country. Yeah. And we win awards. Actually, we just won a contest where we won the most awards out of any printer in the world, competing against 18 different countries. So it's pretty cool. But it's really, you have to walk the line. I mean, I'll lift a skid of paper if I have to. I'm there on the weekends. I'm there early. They all know I work harder than any of them, but they work just as hard. I'm there like 6 days a week, and I think I've earned their respect because of that. And they all want to produce and do a great job, and they enjoy what they do. And we all share. No one's perfect. We all make mistakes, but everybody works together. So it's a great sort of team atmosphere that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what kind of educational background do they tend to have? Do they come from a certain college, or is there certain training for printing backgrounds, or it doesn't matter? It's just the individual and what they bring to the table.
So we're not just a printing company. We have a publishing company. We have an advertising media company. We build websites, online order systems. We have programmers. So we have so many different things. So it's
Yeah,
not just straight like that.
right.
And a lot of it is computer background and learning some technical stuff. There's less and less schools now, unfortunately, for that. It's probably part of the challenge, I think, in the system, because I think there's so many kids that are good with their hands. They may not be a reader or take a book or read a book and be a doctor or whatever, but there's many great jobs for all those people. So we try to work with the individuals. We actually have several employees that have challenges, and we have changed the job around them to accommodate their skill sets and make it work for them, because they are hardworking people. And really, when I talk about entrepreneurship, people say, how do you become so successful? There's no secret to it. I mean, there's good timing and a whole bunch of other things, but it's basically you got to work hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to work hard. Did you imagine, when looking back in your life, do you see where there's sort of been a blueprint that this was inevitable, or did you sort of have a sense that you had this capability, you just had to let it unfold?
No, I had no idea. I mean, I will tell you one little funny story, which I entitled "My Encounter with the Police for the First Time."
Okay.
So this is it's a funny story.
Funny is good.
When I was 12, I had a Kool-Aid stand on the corner of our street, and I thought this was pretty cool. It cost this much money, and you can make a huge profit. And I was getting other people to do the work, and I was running around. So I thought, if I got one Kool-Aid stand, maybe I should get like 2 or 3 more, and we'll take all the corners, and we'll make 3 or 4 times as much money. So we did that. So this was great. So there was construction on the main street besides one of the Kool-Aid stands. And I had to relieve one of the kids, one of our workers. And the construction worker came up, and I said, hey, do you want to buy a glass of cold Kool-Aid? He says, no, I'd like beer. Do you have beer? I go, beer? I don't know. My dad drinks beer. I don't know. How much would you pay for beer? He says, well, lemonade's 10 cents or 5 cents, I guess, at that time. He says, we would pay 50 cents for beer. So I'm going, 50 cents for beer, 5 cents here. Like, okay, you know what? Let me look into it. So I go back home and I say, Mom, can I get some beers? And she goes, sure. So grab some beers and pour them into this jug. Now, of course, I didn't know anything about beer. And of course, you got all this foam and everything. So I had to redo that and do that again and figure that out. So we brought the beer there and we sold it. And boy, it was like, wow, like they're all lined up and it was making really good money. Well, of course, on any construction site, you have police officers generally directing traffic. So the police officer comes up and says, how are you today? I said, fine. I said, would you like a beer? He says, no, I would not like a beer. He says, do you have a license for that? And I said, a license? No, do you need a license for beer? He says, yeah, you do. I said, no, I don't have one. So he says, do you live around here? I said, yeah. He said, let's go talk to your mom. So you got to imagine my mom's face when there's a knock at the door and there's me and a police officer, right? Anyway, he was pretty good about it. It was pretty funny. My mom was embarrassed, and it was a good learning exercise.
That's amazing. And you're 12 years of age?
Yeah.
So you had the capability then to see, like, where the business opportunities were then. That's amazing.
I thought, the biggest thing with youth is we're always told we can't do anything. We're limited by our own limitations. And, I always tell people never give up, because they always kept telling me I would never amount to anything. But I had this inner drive inside, and not everybody has that. So you have to try to find that.
Yeah.
And you have to find a passion for something you love. I remember as a young adult meeting someone who was basically a billionaire. And I thought this was so cool. He had his own planes, and we stayed at his place, and I thought this is really neat. And I said, you must be so happy. And he looked at me. I'll never forget it. He says, you know what? He says, I'm not that happy. He says, if I can give you one word of advice, he says, I wish I had done something I loved, because I don't love what I do.
Right.
And I always remembered that, and I thought it was sort of silly at the time, because I go like, well, this guy's got planes and cars. Like, sounds like a great life. But he wasn't really happy. And I see that in other people. And you know what? It's so important to do something you love. And if you love it and you're good at it and you excel at it, then the money will come, if that's what's important.
I love that. I agree with you, Jay. I think that the more that we find our internal passion, we're able to express that in the marketplace, it will really help to shift things in a positive direction for society, and also at a business, from a business standpoint. Being respectful of your time, I just have a couple more questions. Are you okay with that?
Yep, I'm just going to give you one little graphic because you just
Oh,
reminded
sure.
me of
Yeah.
something.
Can we put up
I
the
just did
school
this.
also, Chris? Just to. Do you see that, Jay?
Pardon?
There's a photo of your school. I just wanted to share with the audience. This is a photo of Jay and a number of students who were able to participate in his skate park that is located in Toronto, one of North America, if not North America's largest skate park. And are you going global with that park or concept, do you think, Jay? Or
Well, it's funny you say that. So we're the third largest in the world, and I think we're going to be the second
oh wow,
not-for-profit indoor largest in the next few weeks. But we do an international certification program. We start. I go all over the world. I've been to I don't know how many countries, 30 countries, and we're teaching people how to teach skateboarding. So we're bringing sort of a standardization to it, which some of the sport doesn't like because traditionally it's been sort of a freestyle, sort of free form. But it is in the Olympics in 2020.
oh I
So
didn't know.
which is
Cool.
so cool. Yeah, so excited about that. But yeah, no, we're spreading the world. I take my skateboard with everybody. My wife always laughs, and it's hilarious. And they'll see this older guy, with pads and a helmet. And they'll sort of look at me and laugh a little bit, and then they go, "Oh, yeah, it's actually not that bad." And if kids give me a hard time, I'll usually go, "Well, how old's your dad?" They go 40. I said, "Can he skateboard?" "Oh no, he can't skateboard." I said, "Well, I'm 56. I'm doing pretty good then." So I try to relate, push it back to them, and make it sort of fun. But when you mentioned creativity earlier, when we talked about the changes in the world. I did a slide presentation just the other day, and I showed like how they used to paint on cave walls, hieroglyphics. And then I showed some pictures of Monet and Van Gogh. And then I showed some body tattoos. And here we are painting on cave walls. Now we're painting acrylic on oil and canvas, and now we're painting on skin. And I'm probably the only one in the skate park who doesn't have a tattoo. So our whole world has changed in so many
Yeah.
different ways, and technology is going so fast we can't even keep up with it.
Yeah, technology and population migration shifts and just economies are changing completely, and it's a very exciting time. It's an exciting time as a business owner. It's a very exciting time as a youth. I'm 53 myself, so I'm sort of a little bit on the older side of the demographic, but I still am very inspired by the work that I do and the people that I meet and the potential that they have to create amazing advances in society. So that's the reason I'm doing this show, is to talk to people like yourself and other experts who are making an incredible difference in life, and to leverage that experience in this discussion as inspiration to people who, everybody has passion, and if they can express that in positive ways, it can really create some amazing outcomes. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jay. Jay, there's some really incredible awards that you have been honored to receive: the Diamond Jubilee, the Ontario Medal for Good Citizenship, Best Printer in Canada, amongst many other awards. Which award was most important to you, and why? I'm sure that might be a tough question to ask.
I've never been asked that question. You received a lot of awards, a lot of medals, which is pretty cool. Didn't do it for that reason, but it's always a nice accolade when you're being recognized by other people, which is sort of cool. Especially as a kid, I never won anything. I think I won one trophy finally when I was 16. I don't know which one. There's not one specific one, I think they're all different. So it's hard to pick specifically one.
Congratulations. What would your parents, on all those awards, and so well deserved and hard earned, what would your parents, looking back at your life, what do they say now? Are they in amazement, or they must be so proud of you and the work that you're doing?
They're both passed away, but I'm sure they're upstairs looking. But they were both very proud, and I came from very humble parents, both very brilliant in their own ways, and did amazing things. They were very proud, and learned a lot from them. Probably I'm not as humble as they were. I have to still work on that. I'm a little not as shy. But if there's messages I can give out there, I'm just going to talk a brief little story. I was on a talk show about 15 years ago, and they had myself in the CBC studio here in Toronto, and they had Stephen J. Cannell, NBC studio in LA, and they had Dr. Sally Shaywitz from Princeton in Washington, and she was asking us both questions. And because of the lag in time, we couldn't hear each other's answers. And she asked us, do we look at specifically as learning disability, as dyslexia, as a negative? And we both answered without hearing each other that we look at it as a gift, actually,
Yeah.
than the opposite, which is interesting. And I think a lot of people sort of have this stigma, and I think it does make you look at things differently, and you try harder, and you look outside of the box, as you mentioned earlier. And I think that's been one of my huge successes, is that I do look outside of the box and look at things differently, which I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so great. I think we do need to recognize that we all have uniqueness, and that and normalize that, and learn how to integrate a new understanding of those gifts that people bring to the table, regardless of culture, regardless of gender, regardless of learning styles, and so on. And I'm excited in any way that I can help.
I personally believe that everybody has something to offer.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding what that is. And generally, when we have some of the kids that are really challenged, we try to focus on finding what their gift or what their secret or what their aptitude is. And even in skateboarding, it's interesting, is somebody will be always really good at one thing as opposed to something else, and then they're able to share that and show that. And so it's pretty cool that way.
Do you know what? I love sports, Jay. I've never tried skating, even though my son's very good at it. Even skiing, I'm not a skier. I love boating. I love horseback riding and music and all these kinds of things. But I think, one of these days I'm going to get to your park and check it out. I'm sure it'd be fun. Maybe at 53, I'll have some skill in skating.
Or we'll get you on a scooter. You never know.
You never know. You never know, right? So yeah, any parting comments? Pardon me?
I just want to, sorry. We talk about problem solving, and
Yeah.
this is a great one. Now, I don't know if this is a real story, if it's folklore or whatever. I like to believe it's true. Someone told me that. But they had this truck, and the truck was 14 feet tall, and the bridge was just shy, about 2 inches short of that. And the truck got through at the beginning and got stuck in the middle of it. So they had two options. They either take the whole truck apart, or they take the bridge apart. Either way, traffic will be backed up for a day or so. There was this 8-year-old kid who had dyslexia, and he's standing about the same height of the tire. And he looked at the tire and he said, well, maybe we just take the air out of the tires a little bit. We can sort of drive it through and then fill it back up. Now, I don't know if that's true or not true, but it certainly was a simple solution to a very complex problem. I don't know if anybody else would have figured that out, or when they would have, it might have been too late. And sometimes the simplest solution is sort of the best solution sometimes. It's
absolutely. Simplicity always is a way to see the world. Is it trees, see the trees for the forest, or the forest for the trees? Yeah, maybe both ways. Maybe that's the capability of people that have that gift. Thank you for sharing that story. And how can people reach out to you, Jay? Like, now that I know you already have such a wide network, but I'm sure youth will be inspired by this conversation. How can they connect with you?
Absolutely. Send your credit card number too. No, just teasing. You can email me at jay@cjs, so that's CJS Skate Park. So jay@CJSSkatepark.com. jay@cjskatepark.com.
Wow. So thank you so much. That's so, it's been such a privilege speaking with you and knowing you, Jay, and you're an amazing human being. And I know there's so many people who are not visible in the community who are also amazing. But so we'd like to thank those people also who are listening or who will listen to this interview, who are doing great work in the community and helping to make, your own difference in big or small ways. Doesn't matter. So thank you for joining us, Jay, so much. Is there any other question we should cover before we leave, Jay?
Well, just a couple of things, Anne. First of all, I want to thank you because you certainly don't do this for the reasons that people think you do. You want to help make a difference, which I think is great as well. And I think, there's just so many people out there that are successful and don't share their stories. It's sort of sad. There are some very successful business people in the city that they feel they're ashamed, or they feel, we know that a high percentage of learning disabilities are hereditary, and particularly men sometimes are a little more stubborn and they don't want to admit that they have a challenge or whatever. Nowadays, when I was growing up, hardly anybody had anything. We all had it. We just wasn't diagnosed or known of, but it's sort of normal now. So I would just urge anybody out there, you're not unnormal. There's no such thing as normal. We all learn things differently. You all have a gift or good at something. We just have to find out what that is and never give up. Just keep trying, and most importantly, never use your sense of humor. I think humor is so important because if we can't laugh at ourselves, who can we laugh at?
I totally agree. Now you have a book that you've authored also. That's now I have it written down here, Jay. It's Cause for Laughter. A Cause for Laughter, is it called?
Yes, it's in its second printing right now. It's going to be available in the spring at Chapters and Indigo, and it's different celebrities I've worked with over the years, and some of the jokes are funny and some of them are okay. Little story how I met them are in there, and I've got a second book coming out in the fall of 2018. It could be sooner, but probably not. It's how to teach, how to ramp up, which is how to teach kids how to skateboard, and it's actually as much for the parents as it is for the kids, so the parents can be up on the lingo and sort of participate with their kids and be involved with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know from my younger days with my son, it was so important to do joint activities. We spent a lot of time at the Y and in different sports in the community and so on. It's such a bonding thing to do, and yeah, that's awesome. The more we can get parents and children working together and communities working together, I think, and acknowledge the teachers and the hard work of the education system and look outside of the box will be a nice world to look back on, or for future generations for sure.
Now, you just touched on something which
Sure, please.
is
Yeah.
really upsetting to me sometimes.
Yeah.
I will see this young boy or girl, and we've got a lot of girls now doing this too, and I'll see them, a couple hours practicing and learning a trick, and the parents, and I understand parents are so busy in their shuttle services, and they're picking up one kid from the next and going to dance and going to ballet or going wherever, or they have to get the subway or whatever. We have busy schedules, right? With this crazy world we live in. But if I'm there at the front, I remember this one boy, seeing him, and the mom goes, "Hey, is Jeremy here? I want to pick him up." And I said, "Yeah, he's out there, but why don't you go watch? He's just learned this." "Oh, I don't have time." I said, "He would love to see you do it. Like, he would really." And she ran out, and he was almost in tears. I could just see it, right? I could feel it. And she didn't see that. And so next week she came, and I sort of said, "You know what? I'm not letting you leave. You need to go watch this trick. You have no idea the impact it's going to have on your son."
Yeah.
So she stayed and watched, and you should have seen his face and his smile. He was so proud to show what he just learned to his mom, which maybe didn't seem like a big deal, but it was a huge deal for him. He spent a lot of time learning it. And I said to her after, she says, "Wow, I should have done that." I said, "What do you do?" She said, "I'm a psychiatrist." I said, and I looked at her. I didn't say anything. She says, "Yeah, I know. I should know better, right?" I said, "Yes." But, we take things for so granted, and parents don't realize the effect they have on their kids. And there's so much pressure on kids. And, like you said, you spent time with your son and doing those things. And I think, so many kids that don't get that. And, there's a group called Sketch, and I did some volunteer work for them years ago doing fundraising. And, we've got 5,000 youth that are homeless under bridges in the city that is probably one of the nicest cities in the world, wealthiest cities in the world. It's absurd. Like, there's no excuse for that.
My last interview in this series was with Tim Lang, who you know, and
Yeah, sure.
Youth Employment Services. Yeah, and there's a copy of that online, but that was an amazing interview as well. And he talked about the homeless youth that he's serving, which is an incredible service to them. But even, in homeless youth, there's such it's really important, I feel, not to stereotype the reasons for them being homeless, and to see that they also have capability, and with a little bit of support, who knows what they can accomplish. So,
absolutely. And it's a great program. And Tim and I were both at an award ceremony. We both received an award. We didn't know each other. We heard of each other's companies. It was a joy and a pleasure to meet him. And it's great there are more people out there who want to help, because I think part of the problem is a lot of people don't want to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or know how to help.
Absolutely. And in the next interview, will be with the executive director of Mosaic BC, who was a new immigrant as a youth to Canada. He was actually a refugee, and the work he's doing in the city of Vancouver is incredible. So I look forward to sharing that with him. But he has an incredible story too. So all of you amazing people, I'm so grateful to have this time with you and to share your experiences. Very powerful. And Jay, just congratulations on everything that you're doing, and the incredible positive impact that you're making in this country and on the planet. And look forward to so many other, a million amazing things that you'll do in the future. So thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time from your busy calendar to make that happen.
Thank you and your team. It's always a pleasure giving back.
Look forward to seeing you again in the future, Jay. Take care. Have a great day. Happy Halloween, I guess it is.
Yes, I guess it is.
Do I look a little scary? Maybe I do. I think I look a little scary every day.
I don't think so. I think I'm going to dress up as a skateboarder businessman.
Yeah, yeah. Good idea. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day, Jay.
Thank you. You too.
Take care. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye. So this is a great interview, and we look forward to bringing more of these to you in the future. And thank you to the that channel team and Chris, who's helped with this, and Hugh, who've helped to put this session together. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.